Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to yet another History of episode. With the overwhelming love and support the recent History of Ermac and Movado video has gotten. Thank you again for that, by the way. Today I figured that since it was in such high demand, I'd bring back yet another installment for you all on the channel, and as voted by you in the character poll this week. In today's History of episode, I will be talking about the master of martial arts, the chameleon of combat, and former herald of Onaga, Shujinko. Now Shujinko is a very interesting character in the franchise, from both a lore and gameplay perspective, as narratively, Shujinko actually appears very early on in the series, with his tale actually threading and weaving in and out of subsequent Mortal Kombat games. It makes his placement in the universe very unique, as he's one of the older characters of the franchise, despite appearing so incredibly late. Along with this, his ties to Onaga puts him in a very unique position, as he's both responsible for his return and fall in the 3D era. Yet, even with the threat and danger such a beast posed, without the Dragon King, Shujinko wouldn't be where he is without him, as it was his unique replicating abilities granted to him by Onaga that has made him such a formidable force. It's a very complicated relationship the two share. Even despite Shujinko's minor and small appearances throughout the franchise, he's definitely made quite the impression on the fandom, especially after his disappearance following Armageddon, only at best from that point being referenced to in the rebooted canon. However, it is now in that of the new era where Shujinko has finally returned 17 years later. So what has become of him here, and what do we know of him in the present? Well, before we do begin, as always, if you're enjoying these sorts of videos, and do wish to see more, please do give this video a thumbs up, as it does go a really long way with supporting the channel, and helps push it into the algorithm more. And if you wish to stay up to date with all things MK related, please do subscribe. But anywho, let's jump right into things. Now, to talk about Shujinko, we do need to actually talk about the creation of his character and the intents behind it, because he had really big shoes to fill coming into Mortal Kombat Deception, as even the game itself was very ambitious for a fighting game. Whilst on the surface it's nothing new, as these games have been known to have a wealth of content, colourful roster, and a traditional arcade ladder system, in Deception, the series opted to expand in a very big way, and it would be done through the Konquest mode. Whilst nothing new as it was originally implemented into Deadly Alliance, the way in which the Konquest mode had been expanded upon was beyond ambitious, taking a very simple storyboard and paragraph, and then completely expanding on it into a full-blown open-world game. One that had multiple realms, quests, as well as ways for you to interact with different characters. The Conquest mode of Deception is very unique, feeling like a gateway for fans of the original trilogy, as well as those who were more familiar with the newer expanded canon. It was a perfect mesh of ideas that blended the past with that of the present in a seamless single-player experience. One that was rewarding, refreshing, and unlike something ever seen before for Mortal Kombat. But right bang in the middle of it was Shujinko, the titular character designed to be the front man of the game. And also, fun fact about Shujinko, his name quite literally translates into protagonist from Japanese, so it couldn't be more blatant or obvious. Now right out the gate, Shujinko had a monumentous task to take on, a legacy that he had to fulfill, as he was designed to succeed Liu Kang, as it's even mentioned in developer logs that he was framed as this generation's Liu Kang. So, were such shoes fulfilled? Well, let's go to the very start of his story and his humble beginnings, and talk about how his path led him into the hands of the Dragon King. But just before we do get the ball rolling, I do want to note that due to the non-linear form of storytelling that the Conquest mode does present, I will strictly be focusing on key moments of Shujinko's main story, only touching on elements that do attain to that of the main plot, as a lot of his story is scattered across the realms, combat, and can be done at different points of the game completely out of sequence, as there are many instances and interactions in this mode that could be seen as pseudo-canon. So to just streamline things and give it a cohesive narrative, I am gonna solely be focusing on Shujinko's main story, and how it takes him into that of the present. Now Shujinko himself originates from that of Earthrealm, at a point much earlier than that of the first game, as the start of the Conquest mode actually preludes it. When we are first introduced to Shujinko, he is a very young and ambitious man, one that desires to enter the Mortal Kombat tournament, become Earthrealm's champion, and defeat Shang Tsung. The pursuit for such a dream would lead to him being tutored by Bo Raicho, the legendary teacher of Liu Kang and Kung Lao. And at a very young age, Shujinko showed a lot of promise in his skill, earning him a lot of respect in his local village. Now by chance, destiny, or fate, Shujinko would be approached by a mysterious deity known as the Mushi, messenger of the gods and weaver of their will. This emissary was seeking a worthy mortal to carry out their bidding, one that put them on the quest to hunt down the Kami Dogu, sacred amulets tethered to reality that was scattered across the realms. So the young and naive Shujinko saw this as a way to achieve greatness, power, and recognition. Thus, he would take on the quest and begin to actively pursue them. But in order for such a quest to be fulfilled, the Mushi would bestow upon him incredibly unique abilities, one that allowed him to flawlessly replicate anyone's fighting style. As the now champion of the Elder Gods, Shujinko would leave his home village and begin his pursuit of obtaining the Kami Dogus. Yet, little did he know the full extent of what he was actually doing, and how he had unknowingly set in motion the end of the realms. About 5 or so years would pass upon accepting the Mushi's offer, and during this time period, we begin to see Shujinko's talent in martial arts flourish very quickly, as he's still under the tutelage of Bo Raicho. But one day, whilst recovering his lost warrior medallion, Shujinko would once again be confronted by the Mushi, taking note of his quest, and tells the young man to in fact steal the amulet for himself, as it could be pivotal in their quest, as it is later utilized to infiltrate a Lin Kuei temple, giving Shujinko the opportunity he needs in order to obtain Earthrealm's Kami Dogu. Upon claiming it and placing it at the Nexus, Shujinko would then turn his gaze to that of the Netherrealm, encountering the likes of Ashura and later Ermac, which orchestrates a conflict between them, allowing him to obtain yet another Kami Dogu. But by returning to the Nexus this time, he would be confronted by a mysterious figure, another man that claimed that he was the champion of the Elder Gods. Seeing him as a false idol, Shujinko would strike him down, not again seen throughout the game's Conquest mode. So with the imposter defeated, the Earthrealmer then averted his gaze to that of the Chaos Realm, plunging into its madness and encountering the likes of Havoc. And it's here where the Cleric of Chaos would ask for his assistance, as the Royal Guard members of the Order Realm, the Sidons, had in fact infiltrated their plane. Shujinko would actually unite with Havoc and fend off the Sidons of their realm, being able to claim yet another Kami Dogu as a reward. But it's here where the years of Shujinko's life finally begin to catch up to him, as whilst from a player perspective, it has all been brief moments. By stepping into some strange waters of the Chaos Realm, it causes him to age rapidly. So once he returns back to the Nexus, he is now a fully grown adult. But with even all of the years that has passed him by, Shujinko is still very much so dedicated to obtaining the Kami Dogus. And quite a bit happens during this time period, as he would develop a bit of a friendship with the Sidon guard Hotaru, as he was in pursuit of Outworld's Kami Dogu. He is actually forced to the Realm of Order, and helps defeat Darius' rebellion, to then have the Sidons travel to the small Outworld village Lei-chan, and put up a post there. By assisting Outworld, Shujinko and Hotaru look to be on very good terms with each other, even if the ways of Saido are very harsh and quite cruel. It's also around this time where he steers a little bit away from his quest, as once Shujinko returns to Earthrealm, he would actually be in pursuit of Shang Tsung. Knowing that the events of the first game were about to happen, he would actually challenge the sorcerer to gain entry, even defeating him to allow his participation. But before anything can be done, he is forced to return back to his quest, and his dream of becoming a Mortal Kombat champion unfortunately withers. Now, in a very strange twist of events, once Shujinko leaves the Netherrealm, traveling to Outworld to assist its people, when he's reunited with Hotaru, he is arrested, having unknowingly broken the curfew that had been established under his new Sidon rule. And even despite the goodwill between the two, Shujinko would be incarcerated to the Order Realm, imprisoned for many years before his trial. And it's during this time period where he ages greatly. But before his fate can be determined, the two officers that were guarding him would be slain by Dairo, having been hired by Damashi to free him. So seeing as he was already in the Order Realm, Shujinko would seek to take this realm's Kamidogu, only to then be confronted by his former friend Hotaru, believing that it was he that murdered his guards. With nowhere to run, Shujinko is forced to defeat his former friend, stealing the Kamidogu before then rendezvousing with Damashi. And it's here, after years of traveling and fighting, where Shujinko finally begins to question the deity and the lengths they are going to in order to obtain the Kamidogus, as he's sensing the chaos that he's creating. But Damashi just reassures him of their pursuit, for what is he but a mere mortal to question the will of the gods. Now, by traveling to Edenia, Shujinko is able to obtain the final Kamidogu upon rescuing Queen Sindel, finally bringing his quest to an end, as well as that of the realms. As once he returns back to the Nexus, he's forced to fight Scorpion and reunites all of the Kamidogus. But something isn't quite right here. And finally, it's here where the facade of the Mushi would extinguish, as the veil finally lifts and it's revealed to actually be Onaga. Behind the scenes, the Dragon King had carefully and meticulously been planning his return, using Reptile as a vessel and laying dormant in order to manipulate Shujinko, as he had effectively served the realms on a silver platter and given him the keys to annihilate reality. He is just narrowly able to escape, being able to return back to Earthrealm, yet all he feels is remorse and loss. Shujinko's entire life was a lie, and he felt nothing but guilt for being such a blind fool. In his despair, however, he would be sought out by the spirit of Earthrealm's former champion, Liu Kang. Having been freed from the shackles of Shang Tsung's body, and seen everything that happened, Liu Kang would band with the likes of Shujinko, Ermac, and Nightwolf to stop the Dragon King, as Liu could sever their bond, whilst Ermac was strong enough to restrain them by releasing them of Onaga's influence. Shujinko's very being and power could actually be used as a conduit to stop the Dragon King. So by channeling their power into a single vessel, he is able to plunge his fist in the chest of the Dragon King and defeat him as he's sealed away by Nightwolf. Shujinko felt absence of the honor found in victory, as he simply couldn't deny how much of a hand he played in this onslaught. Thus, in order to redeem himself of his actions, he would take on the very bold task of battling the realm's deadliest fighters, hoping that by maybe doing so, he could redeem himself in their eyes. Now, this brings us onto the events of Armageddon, and here, despite his importance in that of deception, Shujinko would actually play a very minor role, as he's no longer in the protagonist's shoes of the Conquest mode, instead being replaced by the Edenian demigod, Taven. Thus, his appearance here can only be described as a cameo at best, as during the fallout of Onaga's defeat, Shujinko would be invited to Outworld by Kitana, not realizing that it was Melina in disguise. Even so, once he's able to deduce her identity, he would actually allow himself to be captured, knowing that by doing so, he would actually be drawn closer to that of the enemy. Despite his ambitious nature, we don't actually see that much more of him here, as he only briefly encounters Taven once he's imprisoned, and even then, the Edenian sees his quest and aspirations as nothing more than foolish. Now Shujinko makes his last and final appearance during the Battle of Armageddon, where the war for the godlike power of the fire elemental blaze erupts. Shujinko can be seen on the forces of light here, battling the forces of darkness, as this battle would wage on as the pyramid rises. He can actually be seen running to the top here, but would be stopped by Shang Tsung. He would make his last and somewhat final appearance during the beginning of Mortal Kombat 9, where we see that in the aftermath of this war, much like many others on this day, Shujinko is just yet another victim of Armageddon, as he can be seen dead on the steps of the Citadel. So this now takes us up to the events of the rebooted canon. And here, well, Shujinko was largely absent in the Reboot trilogy, as he's not featured in Mortal Kombat 9 nor 11. The only time he does actually appear is during an arcade ladder ending in Mortal Kombat X, where he's accidentally mistaken by Cassie Cage as Shang Tsung, beating him within an inch of his life and leaving him for dead. But of course, due to the nature of arcade ladder endings, this is believed to be non-canon. There was at one point a scenario where Shujinko actually appeared, and that was during the MKX comic book line, having aligned himself with Havoc after being influenced by his blood code. But unfortunately, much like the arcade ladder endings, this bit of material is now deemed as non-canon, having officially been retconned a fair few years ago. In the new era, however, this is where things drastically change, and currently there are somewhat two Shujinkos, with one being tied to that of the cameo system, being an accurate visual modern-day representation of the character that acts as more of the game's overall mechanical system than he is a character. So unlike other cameos like Motaro or Goro, this Shujinko is strictly reserved for that of gameplay. The other Shujinko, however, is one that has been reintroduced to that of the mainline canon. Here, he's enrolled into the Wuxi Academy, learning and training under the ever-talented yet arrogant Kung Lao. In this timeline and era, despite the changes and alterations to that of Onaga, Shujinko here still somehow retains the chameleon-like abilities of replication, making him a very formidable prodigy amongst his peers. However, with his youth came hubris, as his vanity and skill completely consumed him, having embraced the somewhat divine nature of his powers. Due to this, Shujinko would go insane, absorbed by his own overwhelming power, and attack his former teachers and allies. In order to save Shujinko from what he had become, Liu Kang would have to unfortunately wipe his memory clean, giving him a completely new slate, and allowing him to start over. So Shujinko would continue to study at the Wuxi Academy, but this time it would be under both the tutelage of Lao and Raiden, as it was Lao's lack of humility that really caused Shujinko to spiral. So together as teacher and student, they seek to grow together. But for now everyone, this has been it for the history of Shujinko, and I do sincerely hope you've learned more by tuning in. He's a very interesting character for a multitude of reasons, and dare I say one that is both hit and miss. As both Shujinko serves as a great way to introduce players to the larger scale of the canon and world of Mortal Kombat, he was forced into shoes that were a little bit too big for his own good. As being in the main character role is one thing, but being compared to that of the older protagonist, the poster boy and fan-beloved Liu Kang, it was always going to be a bit of an uphill battle for him. Regardless, I do think that Shujinko serves his role as protagonist quite well, introducing us to a fan-beloved mode that really defined the unique nature of the 3D era. It just makes it all that much more upsetting that sadly, his story didn't continue in Mortal Kombat Armageddon. It just makes it so incredibly unfortunate, as he wouldn't be playable again until 17 years later, and even then, it's that of a cameo. Whilst I myself have my personal gripes with Shujinko as a character. I will admittedly say, it's been pleasant to see him return after so long. At the very least, I will say I am interested to see what the future holds for him, especially with the return of Onaga imminently on the horizon. So, with that said everyone, what are your thoughts on Shujinko, and what do you think of his return? Would you like to see more of him in the new era? Please do comment down below, as I always love to hear what you have to say. But for now everyone, that's been it for me. Take care, I'll catch you in the next one.